There's been another mass shooting in America, this time in a community college in Oregon.
Once again, that we have to peer into the abyss of the depraved violence that we do to each other.
As I said just a few months ago, and I said a few months before that, and I said each time we see one of these mass shootings, our thoughts and prayers are not enough.
Gun control. The topic that splits our nation, or at least Congress.
Why does the United States lack gun policies? The United States has the most gun violence out of any developed nation.
Even after the mass shootings of Charleston, Aurora, Newtown, Blacksburg, Tucson, Columbine, Lafayette, I could list forever.
Guns are a factor to homicides and even suicide.
The U.S. government should have stricter gun policies because it will lower homicide rates, decrease mass shootings, and decrease suicide deaths. So let's take a look at the U.S.'s current situation.
In 2006, there have been more than 200 mass killings in the United States.
The FBI defines mass shootings as 4 or more people. Thus, they happen more often than the government reports.
Potentially, the United States could have had 300 mass shootings this year alone.
Sadly, guns do not only contribute to mass shootings, but to suicides as well.
Between 1999 and 2013, there were 270,237 firearm suicides in the United States, accounting for 52% of all suicides during those years, according to the CDC.
Firearm-related suicide accounted for 61% of the gun deaths in the United States between 2000 and 2010, according to the National Institute of Medicine.
In addition to suicides and mass shootings, guns are a huge factor in homicide rates.
Guns are the biggest contributor to homicides and caused about 66% of all homicides, according to the CDC.
Guns aren't safe. Thus, the solution is to place laws to contain and regulate guns.
Even though the solution seems too simple, it works.
In countries like Australia and Canada, gun control policies have had an astonishing effect on gun violence.
In Australia in 1996, a conservative...
A conservative?
Yeah, a conservative. Anyway, a conservative Prime Minister, John Howard, swept the nation with gun control laws after the mass shooting of Port Harbour, and the Australian government has reported 0 gun massacres since.
In the 18 years before, there were around 13 mass shootings.
Not only mass shootings decreased, but homicide and suicide rates involving guns decreased dramatically by numbers up to 50 and 60%.
Not only has Australia had success with their gun control laws, but Canada as well.
In Canada, guns must be locked, hidden, and protected.
Canada has about 4.2 guns for every 100 guns, while the United States has 90 for every 100.
In Canada, about 1/2 of a person dies a day by guns compared to 3.5 in the U.S.
The United States even has evidence that gun control works.
According to a March 2014 study published in the International Review of Law and Economics, when gun ownership went down in the United States, overall suicide rates went down.
States with 24% or lower violence rates are states with gun control laws.
So, after all of this, Congress does an exemplary job of completely ignoring it.
Congress hasn't passed a gun control act since 1994. Who is there to blame? Well, it's the NRA.
The NRA is the reincarnated Antichrist Leo V, trying to sell gun rights instead of indulgences, but this time he is not one man, but a whole organization.
Don't you think that's a little harsh?
The harsh part is that 1 week after the slaughter at Sandy Hook Elementary School, the National Rifle Association's Wayne LaPierre said, "The only thing that can stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun."
The NRA argues that guns provide protection against harm and attacks. Well, of the 29,618,300 violent crimes committed between 2007 and 2011, less than 0.8% of victims protected themselves with the use of firearm, the least employed protective behavior.
If only 0.79% of all victims that own guns would use that gun to protect themselves, then the proposal of arming people with guns will prove ineffective since that gun would not be used for protection.
You stupid.
So why does the NRA want more guns? Well, simply, they're money grabbers.
This year, the gun industry is expected to rack up a steady $11.7 billion in sales and $993 million in profit. 60% which come from civilian-owned guns, according to the analysts at IBIS World.
So why do they want more guns?
More money.
Exactly. The NRA is corrupt.
But the NRA is independent from Congress. How do they still manage to have a big influence, though?
With the money the NRA gains, they spend $28 million to attack or to support candidates. $15 million to spend against candidates.
Sadly, politicians have been more focused on getting elected or re-elected rather than focusing on the better good of their constituents.
So what's the solution?
Look, the goal is to decrease homicides, suicides, and mass shootings caused by guns. Gun control laws in other countries like Canada and Australia and even in the US have been successful in achieving that goal.
But politicians ignore the evidence in fear of the NRA's political influence.
The solution is to prioritize gun control laws when voting.
Thus, with enough support of gun control from the constituents to be able to stand up to the NRA.
The solution isn't to completely get rid of guns, but to have less violent guns in the hands of sane and responsible people.
For example, placing bans on assault weapons or reducing magazine capacity, even simple things like background checks.
The Second Amendment isn't an unlimited right.
It is now our job to call for change within the communities and within our government.
In order to save the lives of innocent people.
Excuse me, folks of the NRA, how much money is a life worth?